So my name is Thubten, and I'm a Buddhist monk, and I'm here to talk about meditation. I love the name of this event, the inner, because actually the word Buddhism was only made up very recently. Buddhism is a very ancient tradition, but to call it Buddhism is a modern name for it. If you look at the original old texts of Buddhism, the teachings in the Tibetan and Sanskrit texts, the word used for Buddhism translates as the inner, or the inner science, or the science of the mind, the science of awareness. So I think this is a very beautiful name for a very beautiful event, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. So I want to say a few things about meditation. I'm giving a workshop later where we can go much deeper, but I want to kind of share with you some key points that I think are very helpful, hopefully. My own journey with meditation has been quite complicated. I became a monk 30 years ago. I was very young, and I was experiencing very, very extreme burnout, horrific amounts of stress. And I lived a very kind of wild party lifestyle. I was really burning the candle at both ends, and I was absolutely miserable. And this led to a major meltdown when I was 21 with a heart problem. And I had to completely reevaluate my life. And so I found myself drawn to Buddhism, and I went to a Tibetan Buddhist monastery, not in Tibet, but in Scotland, and I became a monk. I was just desperate for something that would help me to find a way to get to grips with my mind. And I have to confess to you that when I became a monk, and then I started to meditate, and when I first learned meditation, I didn't really like it. In fact, I hated it. And this was a little bit of a problem because I'd already become a monk, so there was no backing out as part of the job description. I just hated it because I would sit there. I had so much turmoil in my mind. I was so anxious, and I had an enormous amount of suffering going on inside myself. And I would sit to meditate, and I thought, well, how do I find inner peace? How do I push all of this away? And I think I assumed that meditation means clearing the mind. And now that I give a lot of meditation workshops and speak to a lot of people, I hear this a lot. I hear people say, oh, I tried meditation, but it was so difficult because I couldn't stop thinking. Or, oh, I want to meditate, but my mind is too busy. Or I have too much suffering. Or I'm too anxious. I'm too this, I'm too that. And then I sit down to meditate and try to clear the mind. And the reason I hated it so much was because the more I tried to shut my mind up, the louder it would shout. Any of you here who meditate will know what I'm talking about. And I think there is this misconception in our culture around meditation, where we assume it's like going into a trance, or just kind of blanking out, blissing out, whatever. I think the two things that made me struggle so much when I first learned meditation was, one, I didn't know how to shut the thoughts down, and they would just get louder and louder. And the other one is I was desperate for some kind of inner happiness. I was so unhappy, and I thought, okay, now meditation has to make me happy. So I'm sitting there, when's happiness going to show up? Where is it? Come on, it's supposed to be inside me, so where is it? And I did find that the more I meditated with that kind of attitude, the more unhappy I became. And then I started to ask questions to my teachers. I've been so lucky to have wonderful meditation teachers, Tibetan lamas. And I said to them, I'm doing loads of meditation, and the more I do, the more unhappy I seem to become. And they said, well, that's because you're trying to make yourself happy. You're trying to be happy. And this was quite a revelation to me, because I went away and thought about it. and realized that waiting for happiness meant I was already telling myself I didn't have it. So the more I'm trying to be happy, the more I'm coming from a place of lack. You know what I mean? I'm telling myself I lack happiness, I lack well-being, I don't have it, I need it, it's over there. So actually, the more meditation I'm doing, the more suppressed I'm becoming, trying to push everything down, and the more unhappy I'm becoming because of wanting to feel something. And I think this is a particularly prevalent issue in modern times, where we're very obsessed with how we feel. We're very obsessed with comfort and feeling good, and so when we meditate, we want to feel nice. We think, oh, it's only working if I feel nice, isn't it? If I feel nice, then it must mean it's working. But this is a spiral, this is a trap. And so I had to find a way to get myself out of this trap. And what started to change was definitely to learn or to teach myself how to have a different kind of relationship with that wandering mind that comes up a lot when you meditate. You know, I really had to find ways to stop seeing it as a problem, to stop thinking, oh, my mind is too busy, therefore I can't meditate. I had to really stop doing that. And so this is one of the key points I find in the meditation journey, is to discover that your thoughts are not invading your meditation. Actually, your thoughts make your meditation stronger. The thoughts make it stronger. Why is that? Okay, let me describe something to you which many of you will be familiar with if you have meditated before. And if you haven't, sure, come along to the workshop and we'll really unpick this even more. You know, when you're sitting down and you're meditating, and okay, supposing you're focusing on your breathing, that's a very common kind of meditation. It's all going very well, you're focusing on your breathing, and then the mind starts to wander. I mean, it goes all over the place, doesn't it? You're thinking about food, you're thinking about holidays, you're thinking about emails you haven't written. It goes all over the place. But here's a question to ask yourself. When I'm meditating and my mind wanders, do I know that my mind is wandering at the time, or do I find out later? Do you know what I mean by that? It's not that here I am with the breath, and then I can see my mind just leave the breath and go for a walk, and oh, I'm skiing in the Alps, or I'm fishing or swimming. It's not like that, is it? It's much more messy. It's more that I'm with my breath, and then I kind of go unconscious, and I wake up 5 minutes later inside my thoughts. Isn't it? Hands up if you know what I mean. Okay, yeah, you know what I mean. Isn't it? So you're with your breath, and then you're kind of lost, and then you suddenly, oh, where was I? I'm supposed to be meditating. That is the meditation. If you take one thing away from this talk, please take this away with you. When you wake up inside your thoughts, that means you are meditating. You haven't failed. You see, I think most people, when they're new to meditation, or even people who've meditated a long time, that moment when they realize, oh, where was I? I was supposed to be meditating, they see that as a moment of failure. Almost like I fell off the horse, and now I have to get back on the horse. I messed up. I blew it. I got it wrong. Now I need to get it right. But let's reframe that. I'm with my breath, then I kind of fall unconscious, and then I wake up inside my thoughts and think, where was I? Well, it means you are meditating in that moment because you've regained your awareness. You're back with the conscious awareness. And then you very gently bring your attention back to the breath. No big deal, no punishment, no sense of failure, just gently come back to the breath. Then you're breathing again. Then your mind wanders, then you're not sure where you are. Oh, here I am, now I'm thinking about emails I need to write. Okay, come back to the breath. Actually, being with the breath, noticing that you got lost, and returning, all three constitute meditation. They're all meditation. So if you understand that, then you understand that having a wandering mind is not a problem, it's part of the process. And in fact, it's quite good for you because it's the coming back to the breath that really makes you strong. You know, when you come back to your breath, you are really exercising a very powerful moment of choice because you're consciously choosing what your mind is going to do. Isn't that the secret to happiness? To consciously choose what your mind is doing. Isn't that a revolutionary, powerful skill that we can teach ourselves? Isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Consciously choosing, oh, I'm going to put my mind here. That means we're teaching ourselves to choose happiness. So, coming back to the breath is the exercise of, consciously choosing. So here's another question. If coming back to the breath is what makes you strong, don't you need somewhere to come back from? So the thoughts and distractions that took you away are the very reason why you can come back. So they're not a problem. They're actually aiding and enhancing the meditation. So I find that this philosophy or way of thinking or way of viewing the process is quite revolutionary because you stop feeling like a failure every time you meditate. You stop feeling you're getting it wrong. You start feeling more compassionate towards your own thoughts and feelings. You start to feel more okay with yourself. You're not in this kind of battle all the time. When I first started meditating, it felt like going into battle each time. It's like I had to put my armor on like a soldier and go into battle. It was horrible. But having this new way of looking at it has really helped. So this helped me a lot. But then, I do think that I went on a little bit of a kind of spiritual trip for a while. When you become a monk and you put these robes on, I'm so used to this now, I've worn these for 30 years, not the same ones, I do wash them, but so I'm used to it now, but in the early days I thought, you have to look like a monk, you have to kind of float around and look, misty-eyed and a little bit sort of holy, and you do get into that, and it's not healthy at all, and so I think what I did was I suppressed a lot of my pain, and thought I was doing quite well, but actually it was bubbling away. And what happened to me was 12 years into being a monk, I decided to go into retreat, meditation retreat. I think sometimes people think meditation retreat is quite pleasant, it's like a kind of nice place to escape and get some peace. Maybe if it's for 2 days, but this retreat was 4 years long, so it was deeply unpleasant. But in a really good way, if you see what I mean. It was unpleasant, but in a healthy way, because it was a very deep kind of training ground. So I went into a 4-year-long meditation retreat on a Scottish island, and 10 days into the retreat, I crashed so badly, mentally and emotionally, and for the first 2 years of the retreat, I was in a very, very deep depression. A very toxic mix of depression and anxiety together, oscillating into a sort of building into panic attacks. And for me, the most overriding issue there was a horrendous amount of shame. I felt so ashamed of myself. Oh, you're a monk and you already teach meditation, now you're falling apart in a retreat, you can't even do the meditation, you're depressed, what's wrong with you? This sort of internal voice of self-disgust was very, very loud. And I think I went back into that initial way of meditating where I just wanted to get rid of it. And I fully understand why I did that, because when you're miserable, of course you don't want to be miserable. Of course you want to push it down. Of course you want to get rid of it. But as we know, the more we resist something, the louder it shouts. So things only changed for me in that retreat when I really hit rock bottom and in fact almost left the retreat, and had to find a way to then work with this pain. And I found a way to turn my unhappiness into the meditation, to literally meditate on the unhappiness. And I started to think, gosh, I've really been hating this part of myself for so long, so many years, and pushing it down. And what would happen if I just sat with it and meditated on it? Instead of the breath, instead of mantra, instead of prayers, the depression. So where is it in my body? Where do I feel it? So I was feeling a kind of heaviness here. Actually, it was a kind of sinking feeling combined with a twisting feeling, like a knife, twisting and turning, repeatedly, all day, sometimes all night. And I thought, okay, I'm going to meditate on that feeling. It's so interesting when you turn something into the object of your meditation. When I say object, I mean the focus. It's so interesting how your relationship with it changes. Because when you are using something as the meditation focus, that becomes the place to which you return when your mind wanders. So your mind wanders, and my mind was wandering into trying to find the causes of my unhappiness. My childhood, my adolescence, kind of memories. That's where the mind was going, but I kept telling myself, no, just come back to the feeling in the now. So when you come back to that sensation, your relationship with it changes because it almost becomes the place where you want to be. In the same way as with breathing meditation, your mind wanders, you come back to the breath. You're kind of attracted to the breath. So it sounds a little bit weird, but you sort of become attracted to that feeling. And you start to just explore the sensation of it. It's heavy, it's twisting, it's turning, it's sharp. And then you send love. You know, meditation is not like putting something under a microscope, staring at it like in a clinical way. Meditation is applying the power of love within your own mind towards your own mind. So you send love into that feeling, you send compassion into that feeling, you become one with that feeling, you merge with that feeling, and it starts to change. So this became my main practice during the retreat, and I think it helped me survive those 4 years, and has become something I find very helpful for myself, and I write about it and I talk about it to other people. But let me also describe to you how it felt coming out of that retreat. You know, I came out of that retreat at a time when the world was, it was a big change in the world, because my 4-year retreat was in 2005, so I came out in 2009. During those 4 years, the iPhone was launched, and also social media and YouTube. They all happened during those 4 years. So before I went into retreat, a few people had Blackberries, and that was it. When I came out of retreat, the retreat was on a Scottish island, and I came back to London, and everybody's walking around with their face buried in a phone, and everything is so fast moving. And I think for me, it was quite a shock to the system, because I'd been in this very kind of quiet environment meditating. You know, in the retreat, you have no contact with the outside world. There's no phones, no internet, nothing, no connection. So then you're sort of almost like being on another planet, and then you land back on Earth. And I noticed with more of a shock, maybe, how things had sped up. And what became so noticeable to me was how our relationship with information has changed. In that we used to go towards the information, and now the information comes to us through our phone, isn't it? So our relationship with news, we used to turn on the 6 o'clock news or read the newspaper. Now it's very invasive. So I started to notice the fast-flowing, invasive nature of the information, and I started to wonder, well, what is this doing to our mental health? The other thing is the nature of advertising and selling has changed, in that it always used that sense of, you know, making people grasp after things and making people want things, but there's something more insistent about it now in the way it's embedded in everything we do. You're trying to look at cute puppy dogs on Facebook, and you have to see an ad first. You know, it's all there. And this invasive, compelling, pervasive quality to the information and the messaging is very powerful. And I think on a very gross, basic level, if you want to sell things to people, you have to tell them there's something wrong with them unless they have your product. I mean, that's a very sort of gross way of describing it, but I think it's there subtly, isn't it? You have to tell your audience, oh, you can't possibly be happy unless you look like this person and have this object. So I think we've emerged into a culture of incredible amounts of insecurity and feeling bad about ourselves. And so I was noticing all of this with more kind of horror when I came out of the retreat. But what I also noticed was a huge surge in people's interest in meditation, mindfulness, psychotherapy, all these amazing disciplines that can help people to heal their minds. So where there's a problem, there's also a solution. So I feel very optimistic about how many more people, especially children, I don't know about here, but in the UK, mindfulness is on the curriculum in many schools, so people are starting very young. I teach in hospitals, I teach in prisons, I teach in drug rehab centers, schools, all kinds of places, and my colleagues are doing even more than me. So there is this huge surge in meditation in the 21st century and its amazing role. And what I find fascinating is that the technique is thousands of years old. Of course, meditation was being taught by the Buddha 2,500 years ago in India, and yet it's still relevant. The technique is still relevant. It doesn't need to be updated in any way whatsoever, because what you're learning is how to deal with the thoughts and emotions in a different way. It doesn't matter what the thoughts are. 2,000 years ago, your stress was about something different to what it's about now, but the way the mind handles its own thoughts is a very technical thing. It's a very technical thing that doesn't change. The mind gets lost in a thought and doesn't know how to get out of it. And again, I remind you that I started this talk by saying one of the mistakes we make, or maybe it's not a mistake, but part of the journey, is that we assume we have to remove the thought. I hope that what I've said today has given you a little bit of more interest in working creatively with your thoughts when you meditate, not seeing them as a problem, but seeing them as the thing which helps you come back to the breath. And then when you have an enormous amount of pain and suffering, like I did during that retreat, that also becomes the thing that helps you grow. At the time, I would not have wished that level of misery on anybody, but looking back, I can see it has made me stronger. It has made me more gentle with myself, because I had to, it was a state of emergency inside myself. I had to learn how to stop hating that part of myself that I felt was so disgusting. I had to teach myself how to be more at peace with the negativity within me. So in that sense, it's made me more gentle with myself. And it's made me think about how in Buddhism, I mean, I'm not here to push Buddhism down your throats, but there's some very beautiful aspects of Buddhist philosophy that, whether you become a Buddhist or not, can really help you in your lives. And I often think about how one of the key statements the Buddha made when he first started teaching was, the more we want, the more we want. And the more we don't want, the more we don't want. I mean, it's very simple, isn't it? But it's very profound. Because if you think about it, this search for happiness, the search is the problem, isn't it? Because when we're constantly searching for happiness, instead of realizing it's already there within us, we're looking outside. It's like when I'm wearing my glasses and I'm not sure where they are and I'm looking around the house, but they were on my face the whole time. We've all done that. Anyone who wears glasses knows what I mean. So the searching for happiness, looking, wanting, don't you find that when you get what you want, you then want something else? It's because the searching encourages more searching. And of course, that's manipulated very cleverly by the industries around us that make us want more, want more, want more. And the Buddha described this 2,500 years ago. He said, searching leads to more searching. So when you get what you want, your mind jumps over it, wanting the next thing. So there's an endless hunger. And happiness seems like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. We're never quite sure. The more we rush towards it, the further away it gets. Because we didn't realize we were already wearing our glasses, if you use that as a metaphor. And on the other side of the coin, the more we push things away, the more we reject things, the more we run away from things, that also creates a habit of running. The more I run away, the more I run away. So the more I try and push my suffering away, the more insistent it becomes, because I'm building a habit of pushing away. So we're sort of running on this wheel like a hamster, running towards something, running away from something, always wanting more, always wanting to push away what's uncomfortable. It's very understandable that we should do that, but I think we have to maybe sometimes step off that wheel and ask ourselves, is this working? Am I actually getting what I want? Do I actually know what I want? I think I want this or that, and then when I get it, it seems to be not what I wanted. What am I actually looking for? I think what we're looking for is to free our minds. I think we want to free our minds. I don't think we want to remain caught in that cycle. And so we have to step off the wheel and sit and look at the mind itself and see the wheel running within ourselves and think, how can I learn to be less automatically controlled by these habits? How can I learn to find more freedom and more compassion for ourselves and more compassion for others? And so these are key elements on the meditation journey. But I don't have so much time now, but I have, I think, 3 hours with people this evening where we can really go into this in much more detail, because I'd love to share with you techniques that you can take away with you immediately. And I find that the key thing, the main thing people struggle with is they want to meditate, but they never find time to do it regularly. So I want to really help you get to grips with that. You know, there's an old joke that the definition of a Buddhist is somebody who's either meditating or feeling guilty for not meditating. Because it's like that, isn't it? You know meditation is good for you, but there's never time. So tonight I want to really help you get to grips with how to integrate meditation into your lives as a daily practice. And you might say, oh, he's a monk, he has loads of time, it's easy for him. No, I'm a busy monk. I travel a lot, I teach, I write books, I run charities, so I'm just as busy as you, and I know how meditation can be slotted into a busy day, and I want to share that with you. I want to also share with you, and I'll say this now especially because some of you might not be coming tonight, is yes, meditate every day, but also what about the rest of the time? I love practicing little micro moments of meditation. Momentary. You're standing in a queue, you're stuck in traffic. You can just feel the ground under your feet. You can feel the chair under your body. You're washing your hands at the sink. You feel the movement of the soap, the water. I find this very, very interesting to do whenever I'm waiting for something. You know, when you're waiting for something, there's that kind of automatic impatience that starts up, but it's totally pointless. I mean, if I'm stuck in traffic and I'm getting wound up, it doesn't make the traffic move. It's just stress on top of stress. But what if when I'm standing in a queue or I'm waiting for something and I'm feeling that kind of impatient energy build up, what if I just relax and feel the ground under my feet, relax my shoulders, relax the muscles in my body? What if I did that? Then what I'm doing is I'm learning to be at peace in a situation that normally would make me frustrated. And I find this a very interesting practice to do because it prepares you for the bigger stuff. It prepares you for being able to sit with discomfort, to be able to sit with pain, to sit with misery, because you're teaching yourself at a very visceral level how to just be in the moment, even when the moment is an unpleasant moment. So we all love to sit in the yoga studio on a beautiful cushion with soft music and candles, but what about in the airport? What about in the dentist's chair when he's about to come at you with the drill? What about in the maternity room when you're in labor? What about when you're in an argument with somebody? These are your meditation zendo or yoga room. These are the times when you can also apply these moments of mindful awareness. It becomes very, very helpful. I find this very helpful for myself. I used to find public speaking terrifying. In fact, the first time I had to speak in public, I burst into tears. I was so frightened. And I literally had to give a talk through my tears. And I used to find it so scary, and I used to prepare with notes and everything and terrified. And then I started to teach myself how to do mindful moments before and during giving public talks. And it just got me to change my attitude to the whole thing, so that now I find it incredibly relaxing. It's like a free massage. I mean, you might think I'm giving you something, but actually you're giving me something because you're giving me this time to relax. So I've found in myself, I've taught myself how to use these stressful moments as a way of going into deeper relaxation. So it's helped me a lot with public speaking. I haven't got there yet with difficult family members. Let's talk about that next year and see if I've managed that a bit more. But thank you for your time, and now I think we have time for questions.